this gentleman over here, who is the CEO of IOV Labs and RSK, and also the founder of the LaBitConf event. You want to tell us your name?
Diego Gutierrez Aldivar, but they know me as Dieguito.
That's Dieguito, that's right. Dieguito, for the last several years, you've been one of the leading figures in Bitcoin in Argentina and Latin America. Why has Argentina become such an important place for Bitcoin adoption?
I think Argentina on one side has suffered every major economic crisis you can imagine. It's like bailouts, bail-ins, we did them all. Hyperinflation, confiscation of assets, like you name it, we had it.
You guys have the experience.
We had the experience. So people, it's always hedging against the government. Also, people think like in a dual monetary system already. So usually they store value in dollars. That's a historical way of storing value. And they spend in pesos because they are forced to. No? Basically, that mindset plus that Argentina is always like, I would say, craving for technology. As Argentina was one of the first countries to adopt social networks, cable TV, like that combination creates the perfect environment for Bitcoin. No, that is one of the big elements why Argentina. The other thing is the community. The Bitcoin community in Argentina and Latin America started gathering very early, 2013.
So at that time, people were adopting Bitcoin as a way to transact internationally and to store their value, not in pesos, because the pesos, it evaporates in your pocket.
Yes.
But now more and more people are using stable coins.
Yes.
Why are people choosing stable coins over Bitcoin, and who chooses which?
Bitcoin brings like very powerful things, and it's the beginning of the separation of money and state. So I think it's like extremely powerful, but also Bitcoin is very volatile because it's hard money. So you have an asset that cannot be used day to day, week by week. And most of the people, if you think like 80% of the population lives, in those time frames. It's like they live month by month, they live quarter to quarter, and they don't have the ability to store value for mid to long term. So Bitcoin in a way can serve two very opposite extremes. The people who has the ability to store value for 2-3 years or more, maybe the upper 20% of the population, and the people who lives in economies that are so unstable that Bitcoin looks stable. No, it's like, when you are in Venezuela, look, Bitcoin is a stable coin, compared to the local currency. So, but what happens with everybody else? And the stable assets find a way to serve anybody else. It's like they serve the needs of that 80 or let's say 75% of the population who is in between.
So I think that's a really great point, because what we would like is we would like Bitcoin to be extremely inclusive, hyper-inclusive.
Exactly.
And one way that we get there is by building Bitcoin-backed stablecoins. And here's maybe a good time to talk about Rootstock. It started because you wanted to have Bitcoin-backed stablecoins. Yes. And we now have several Bitcoin-backed stablecoins on Rootstock. And not only that, Rootstock is the only place that you can find Bitcoin-backed stablecoins.
Well, that don't have a custodial entity, because you have, wrappers of Bitcoin, but
no Bitcoin-backed stablecoins.
No Bitcoin-backed stablecoins.
Only on Rootstock.
Yes.
We're seeing more and more adoption of these stablecoins globally, but certainly in Latin America. What are the other cool things that are happening on Rootstock?
Of course, sovereign is one of them, because the original vision was like how we can create a full financial system that doesn't depend on intermediaries. So the first step was like creating this sidechain to Bitcoin with smart contracts. That's Rootstock. The following step was creating this peer-to-peer monetary system where Bitcoin was the collateral and you could issue the stable assets. But the following step was to create all the financial primitives that people use on daily life on top of that peer-to-peer monetary system. And that's what also has a name now called DeFi. Sovereign, Money on Chain, Tropicus, all of those solutions, what they are building is actually these financial primitives on top of a peer-to-peer censorship-resistant monetary systems.
What are going to be the most exciting things over the next 3 months, over the next year, and over the next 2 years?
I think next 3 months we have a lot of launch of, high-scale projects. Also, we are working on a self-sovereign identity system that we are implementing with some cities and some jurisdictions. And it's a truly self-sovereign identity system. It's not owned or managed by the government. The government only creates one credential. So it's the issuer of one credential that enables trust creation around that credential. but it will be an open ecosystem. So people can use any wallet that supports the standard and the credentials are managed by the individual.
Is this using Ion? Or it's a separate system?
It's connected to Ion, but it's multi-chain. So the issuer can choose to anchor. For example, in the city of Buenos Aires, they will choose to anchor it in Rootstock and Ethereum. In the case of Gibraltar, it's on Rootstock. The different jurisdictions might choose to issue the original identifier wherever they want, but also Bitcoin will be one via Ion. That's very exciting for me, but because, for example, that will remove KYC problems for a lot of an exchange of sensitive information, because how KYC is done today is like breaking all privacy. With this, you don't need to exchange sensitive information because somebody else validated your data.
Has validated and it doesn't need to travel to multiple different parties. Right now, every single person who goes through KYC, whoever they've done KYC with, has that data. It's a honeypot of information. You only need one of them to be hacked for the information.
So we are sorting that out in a much better way than the traditional system was sorting that out. The main challenges we have is scale, and this will be one of the solutions, because suddenly we'll have millions of users with these self-sovereign identity systems that will be able to interact. They will have a wallet that is able to interact with the DeFi, the decentralized finance ecosystem we have in Rootstock. So I think mass adoption is what's coming. It took us some time. I think it's like, for example, the Reef wallet, it's an open source wallet, is integrating a lot of features that will enable people to transact in a non-custodial way with the same experience of a neobank or a fintech, but in a non-custodial way.
Right. Which is super important. We just had, a $40 billion exchange, which is supposed to be, holding everyone's fund security disappear. And before that, when we started Bitcoin, was because Lehman and Bear Stearns disappeared. You can't trust anyone. The whole point was to create a system which required no trust.
Exactly, because at the end, what I feel, that's why I got into Bitcoin in the first place. My realization 10 years before Bitcoin, for me, was that the problems in society were about concentration of power. If you accumulate enough power, you will be corrupted. Even if you want it or you don't want it. Maybe you are a person of values, you are on principles. Even if you yourself don't corrupt, you will have powers that will start like forcing you to be corrupted, and they will basically attack your physical integrity. If that's not enough, they will attack the physical integrity of your beloved ones. So decentralization is the only way to end corruption. Is the only way to end, and basically this is a reminder of that. It's like when we have entities that accumulate value, and these are intermediaries. What failed now were intermediaries, not the crypto system. Exactly, the middleman. As you said, same model. That model is failing society in the economical realm, in the political realm, and we need a new solution, and we have it.
Exactly. So talking about cutting out middlemen, in 3 sentences, why should Bitcoiners care about Rootstock?
Rootstock fulfills 2 purposes. On one side, it brings all the reserve of value that exists in Bitcoin and make it useful for the 80% of the population who cannot store value in the middle to long term, but also makes Bitcoin more relevant. If Bitcoin is only a store of value, then it will be much tougher to defend. If Bitcoin is the infrastructure for all the financial needs of every human being in the world, then Bitcoin is unstoppable. So I think it's also about the anti-fragility of Bitcoin. If you want Bitcoin, if you love Bitcoin, Rootstock is a way to defend it.
And last question, why should Bitcoiners be excited about Sovereign?
Well, I think Sovereign is doing an amazing job, like integrating all the things that you need to actually manage your economy without resorting to centralized parties. No, as a Bitcoiner, it's like we end up putting our Bitcoins in a centralized system to get a loan, for example, because we don't want to liquidate the Bitcoin, but we need cash to live.
You don't want to sell.
Yeah, exactly. Why we want? I mean, it's like counter intuitive, like do that on a centralized party when this is all about decentralization and being your own bank. Well, now with Sovereign, you can be your own bank being a Bitcoiner, no?
Awesome. Very cool.
See you.